Hi, PerspectaWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on the last day of the month of July, July 31st, Wednesday. We have a lot going on in the world of weather. First of all, quite an active look to the tropical scene right now. We'll focus in on that at the beginning of this video discussion, and then we'll talk about the severe thunderstorm threat in the Mid-Atlantic region, especially along the I-95 corridor late today and early tonight. Any thunderstorm that forms later today can produce heavy downpours and potentially damaging wind gusts as well. Of course, grounds are still well saturated, so flash flooding is a concern in any of these locations along the I-95 corridor region, from D.C. to Philadelphia to New York City and all the suburbs surrounding those urban areas. Again, there is the potential for heavy downpours later today and tonight as a cool front slowly inches its way across the Mid-Atlantic region. Let's start off by looking at the Atlantic Basin and the current location of a couple different waves. First of all, we talked about this the other day. There is one wave right now over the islands here, and it looks like that does not have favorable atmospheric conditions for intensification. So very likely not going to develop into a tropical storm or anything stronger than that. However, this particular wave out here in the Eastern Atlantic has some potential. It looks like it will continue to move in a west to northwest fashion over the next several days. And there is a large area of moist air right in this corridor right here. We talked extensively in the past few weeks about dry air over the heart of the Atlantic Ocean that moved from the African area, the western part of Africa, to out over the Atlantic Ocean. That has retreated to the north somewhat right now, and there's a moist plume of air in this corridor right here that will allow for some favorable conditions for this particular wave. And it's very possible that in about a week's time we'll be dealing with a tropical system, perhaps tropical storm or even a hurricane status right in this region right here in about a week's time. So we'll stay tuned and closely monitor this. If in fact this wave becomes a named system, it will become Chantal. Well, let's take a look at the latest infrared satellite image of the Atlantic Ocean, the tropical part of the Atlantic. And again, multiple waves of interest right now. Here's the west coast of Africa right in this region right here. Wave number one. This region right here, again, does not have much promise in terms of potential for intensification. The atmospheric conditions just are not favorable. However, there are multiple waves here in the Eastern Atlantic. Here's another wave, and the wave we just talked about right here, this is the one that has some promise as it continues to move to the west-northwest. Trailing that, yet another wave just now moving off the west coast of Africa. Of course, tomorrow begins the month of August. Climatologically speaking, the Atlantic Basin season really picks up in activity during the month of August. It just tends to ramp up during August, reaching a peak sometime around the middle part of September. Of course, that is climatologically speaking. Every year is a little bit different from climatology, but nonetheless, it looks like it is starting to ramp up just at the time of the year that it's supposed to ramp up in the tropical part of the Atlantic. So again, we may be dealing with this particular wave somewhere in the western Atlantic in about a week's time as a tropical storm or perhaps even a hurricane. Well, now let's focus in on the threat for the I-95 corridor later today and early tonight. We've actually had a relatively dry period, a rain-free period over the past several days in the Mid-Atlantic region, a well-deserved dry period given the very wet pattern that we've experienced over the past several months. A cool frontal system will slowly work its way across the region late today and tonight. A slow-moving system that spells trouble, because I think any shower or thunderstorm that forms later today in the Mid-Atlantic region and tonight will be a slow mover. That will allow it to dump a lot of rainfall in a short period of time, because it'll be just sitting over an area for an extended period of time. So the potential exists later today and tonight for some heavy downpours, perhaps 1, 2, maybe even 3 inches of rain in some areas. And of course, ground conditions are very well saturated, so any heavy downpour could produce some flash flooding. There's also the potential for some severe thunderstorm activity. Here's the outlook by the Storm Prediction Center with a slight risk of severe weather right up and down the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor later today, especially for later today and early tonight. If there is severe thunderstorm activity, the biggest threat would be damaging wind gusts to go along with those heavy downpours. Well, in terms of radar activity, right now there is a blob of showers and maybe an embedded thunderstorm up across upstate Pennsylvania. That is moving into towards interior New York State. This is the area to watch for the I-95 corridor region, right here over West Virginia and the western part of Virginia over the next several hours. And again, from D.C. to Philadelphia to New York City, they'll be under the gun for potential strong to severe thunderstorms later this afternoon and early tonight, any one of which can produce some heavy rainfall, be a slow mover, and potentially even some damaging wind gusts. This is the area, again, that we'll watch for an expansion of the coverage of the showers and thunderstorms over the next several hours. Well, let's take a quick look at the upper air forecast maps by the 6Z GFS model run. We're looking at vorticity fields in the upper part of the atmosphere. These are areas of spin in the upper part of the atmosphere. They tend to lead to upward motion over a given area. And in this particular setup here, we're looking at vorticity in the upper part of the atmosphere to potentially set off severe thunderstorm activity later today. First of all, we kind of have an upper level trough just situated right in the eastern part of the nation as we begin the day. That, right off the bat, makes it kind of an unstable atmosphere in this part of the nation. Again, you see these heights dipping down like that. That is an upper level trough, and it provides some upward motion right off the bat in the eastern part of the U.S. But then let's push forward here. Notice this little darker area showing up here. This is kind of a upper level vorticity in the middle of that trough here that lies on top of the eastern part of the nation as we progress through the day. This is a forecast map for early this afternoon. Again, this is supportive of upper level motion, and that could produce some strong to severe thunderstorm activity as the afternoon progresses right along the I-95 corridor region early this evening. This is a forecast map for about 7 or 8 p.m. this evening. There you go, with upper level instability right on top of the I-95 corridor region. Potential for strong to severe thunderstorm activity, heavy downpours, damaging wind gusts. As we go through the night, that pushes off the coast. Very possibly can be some patchy fog after midnight in the I-95 corridor region, likely following some heavy rainfall, so the grounds will be very saturated. And then that frontal system basically stalls out south of us, keeping some instability in the mid-Atlantic region, especially the southern part of the mid-Atlantic region, for the latter part of the week and the upcoming weekend. Well, now let's walk through the surface forecast maps from last night's 6Z GFS model on high pressure over the western part of the Great Lakes. It's a nice air mass for this time of year, situated over the Great Lakes, but here in the east we have certainly some moist conditions, and as we just talked a minute ago, some instability in the upper part of the atmosphere, vorticity maxima right in the middle of an upper level trough, and that could lead to some severe thunderstorm activity. The model really expands in precipitation by early tonight. This is 7 or 8 p.m. this evening. Green representing rainfall here, showers and embedded thunderstorms. And again, given the slow movement of this cool frontal system at the surface and kind of the lack of winds in the upper part of the atmosphere, any shower or thunderstorm that forms later today and tonight is likely to be a slow mover. That increases the chance for some heavy rainfall amounts, because may rain heavily for an extended period of time over a given area. And of course, that could lead to some flash flooding conditions anywhere in the Mid-Atlantic region. Overnight tonight, that pushes off to the south and east. Fog could form after midnight. And then on Thursday, that frontal system tends to stall out across the Virginias and Carolinas, and it creates some instability, especially tomorrow afternoon south of the Mason-Dixon line. D.C. area, maybe mostly cloudy skies tomorrow with the chance of showers and thunderstorms. Probably stays rain-free north of the Mason-Dixon line on Thursday. But then by the time Friday rolls around, all areas in the Mid-Atlantic region may see some more shower and thunderstorm activity as that front just stalls out, starts to head kind of to the north again as a warm frontal system at the end of the work week, and that will continue to produce some unsettled conditions on Saturday as well. Right here we're seeing some scattered showers and thunderstorms. Doesn't look like any of those days, Friday or Saturday, will be total washouts, but the threat for showers and thunderstorms will continue, especially in the southern half of the Mid-Atlantic region on Thursday, then pretty much throughout the I-95 corridor on Friday and Saturday. And again, in about a week's time, we may be dealing with a tropical storm somewhere in the western Atlantic, and we'll monitor that possibility closely over the next several days. That's it for now. For PerspectaWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.